We're moving on to congressional elections, and that brings us to gerrymandering, which is all about who gets to draw the district lines. So, get ready to see lots and lots of maps. Gerrymandering is a complex topic with lots of parts. Here's an outline of topics. In this video, we'll go over what gerrymandering is and the history of gerrymandering. What is gerrymandering? Let's start with a basic fact about our electoral system. Almost every legislative body in America uses single-member districts. A system of single-member districts is one where every political unit, here every state, is divided into districts, and every district elects one winner independent of any other district. How do you win a district? Simple, you receive more votes than anybody else. In other words, you need to win a plurality. Note, a plurality means you've won the most votes, but it doesn't necessarily mean you've reached over 50% of the vote. If you do reach 50%, you've won a majority as well as a plurality. The American system only cares about pluralities. There are many names for this system. One you'll often hear is first past the post voting. It's a metaphor borrowed from horse racing. All that matters is which rider passes the post at the finish line first. It doesn't matter if that rider finished miles ahead of the competition, or whether he just squeaked by. All that matters is that you won the race. Other names for this same voting system include winner-take-all and plurality voting. With first-past-the-post voting, there's no advantage in winning a district by a lot rather than a little. Once you've won a plurality, any additional votes beyond that are basically wasted. At the same time, all the votes for the loser in that district end up counting for nothing as well. These wasted votes on both the winning and the losing side are what make gerrymandering possible. Let's demonstrate with an example. Here's a small political community of 9 blue and 6 red voters. We're going to divide them into 3 districts. First, let's suppose I draw the lines in a natural, neutral way. Here, red wins the Northwest District, blue wins the Northeast, and blue wins the South. Overall, blue wins 2/3 of the seats, and thus the legislature as a whole. Notice that this isn't quite the same as the 60% of the popular vote won by blue, but it is fairly close. But now, let's suppose that blue is in charge of the districting process and wants to abuse its power. It can draw the boundaries like this, giving it a majority in every single seat. This is what we would call gerrymandering, which we'll define to mean manipulating district lines to favor one political party over another. Specifically, blue has engaged in the process of cracking. It splits the red votes between multiple districts, denying them a majority in any one seat. Blue has robbed red of its fair representation. Now suppose that red controls the process. Red can play dirty too. It can draw the lines like this, ensuring that it wins 2 out of 3 seats. The technique red has used is called packing. Red packed most of blue's voters into one super blue district in the southeast. This dilutes blue's political power because all those extra blue votes in that district are wasted. Red, the less popular party, has managed to take control of the legislature, a minority government. This is how you thwart the will of the people. Thus, it matters tremendously who has the power to draw the district lines. I hope you'll feel much comforted to hear that the answer is, in most cases, the state legislatures. Let's look at Article 1, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution. The times, places, and manner of holding elections shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. Congress is given the power to alter this process in some respects, but I want you to think of holding elections as basically a state responsibility. How does this work? Every 10 years, the Census Bureau goes and counts every American, gathering new population data. Then, state legislatures have to use these population numbers to redistrict. So, every 10 years, district lines are drawn fresh. One consequence of putting state legislatures in charge of districting is that legislators in these bodies actually get to draw their own seats. This can be taken to ridiculous extremes. One North Carolina lawmaker actually pushed to change the boundary of his district when he moved houses. All of a sudden, the district grew a little offshoot, including the guy's new house. But even without these kinds of shenanigans, the practice of letting state legislatures draw their own districts seems problematic. In theory, voters choose their representatives, but in practice, these representatives get to choose their voters. History of gerrymandering. Gerrymandering has always been part of American politics. In fact, the very first congressional elections under the Constitution featured a famous gerrymander. Apparently, James Madison's longtime rival, Patrick Henry, tried to prevent Madison from winning election to the U.S. House of Representatives by sticking Madison's home in a district full of anti-federalist voters. The race between Madison and his anti-federalist opponent, James Monroe, the two men who were to become the fourth and fifth presidents of the United States, was one of the most closely watched races. But the fact that Madison won a surprise victory after all perhaps shows that, in an era before good data or technology, gerrymandering was largely a matter of guesswork. The actual name gerrymandering comes from a mispronunciation of Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry. Gerry signed into law this bizarrely shaped district in 1812. Someone observed that it looked like a salamander, and so the district became known as the gerrymander. Even though gerrymandering has been with us from the beginning, everyone agrees it's getting worse. The reason for that is probably computers. With more and more fine-grained data, and all the computation power you could ever need, districts can be finessed down to a block-by-block level, sometimes even house by house. In September 2019, it was revealed that the consultant who helped draw North Carolina's gerrymander had voter information on individual college students at North Carolina A&T. This guy actually divided the university dorm by dorm between two different congressional districts. He figured out what percentage of students in each dorm had valid voter IDs, and then sorted them into districts, knowing that it could make more of a difference in one district than the other. It's a pretty interesting story. If you want to read more about it, there's a link in the description.